to organize your amazing ideas into a powerful book? You are in the right place.
At the right time to learn how to write your book.
Hi, I'm Joyce Glass.
And I'm Cherrilynn Bisbano, and welcome to The Right Hour Nonfiction Tips from the Right Coach team. We are so glad you joined us today.
Welcome to episode 903 of The Right Hour. Today, we continue sharing how to grow your audience on social media. Erin Sanchez shares how to create a killer bio. Bios are important because they're a way for people to get an idea of who you are, learn something about you, and your personality. Erin is a writer, speaker, and brand strategist helping leaders and high achievers grow their audience, authority, and income through strategic storytelling. Her blog, CandidlyErin.com, is dedicated to providing actionable advice for individuals and businesses who want to tell better stories and share them with the world. When she's not reading or writing, you can find Erin in her garden, the gym, or hanging out with her husband and 4 dogs. Learn more about Erin in the show notes. This episode is sponsored by How to Build Your Audience on Twitter with Keith Keller and the Right Coach team. If you're writing a book, the time to grow your audience is now, before, during, and after you write your book. Don't make the mistake I did and wait till you're finished writing. It's too late, or you'll need to delay releasing your book to grow your audience. Learn the 4 easy and actionable strategies on how to grow your audience. Use the discount code for you to receive $10 off and learn more at the link in the show notes. Hi, and welcome to this episode of The Right Hour. We are so excited for this season because as we've been talking, writers need to be building their audience. And one of the ways that we can do that is making sure your bios on your social media are in great condition. You want to make it interesting for people, right, Erin?
That's right.
Yeah. So we have Erin Sanchez with us today, and Cherrilynn is here.
Hi, I made it.
Yes, she made it. She's finally feeling a little better. So, Erin, tell us a little bit about you and your journey to becoming a writer.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you both for having me on the show. It was a journey to get here. We've had to reschedule a couple times. That's on me. But thank you so much for having me on. My journey to becoming a writer is kind of the cliche. I've always loved writing. You know, I think most writers are like that. We've loved it since, childhood. And I wrote a short story and won an award when I was a kid. And I think that just kind of like confirmed everything for me. I was like, yeah, I can do this. I'm good at this. And so I just kind of pursued it, throughout school. And when I did go to college, I went into like marketing and communications. And so it's always been part of my life and part of who I am. And the journey to becoming a writer who gets paid for their writing was a whole nother story. But the short version is, I went into corporate to do marketing and I thought it was my dream job, shiny, tall tower in a downtown, beautiful city and all of this. And then I realized, well, a lot of this corporate marketing stuff is not really using my creativity. It's not really writing. It's kind of being a paper pusher. It's a glorified receptionist. So I started doing some research into what it would look like, what is a freelance writer, what is a copywriter, and kind of like learning all those different avenues. And I started doing some freelancing. I'll pause there so that I don't just ramble, but that's ultimately kind of what started me down the path.
Awesome.
So marketing, it comes in handy as a writer. And
Yes.
So tell us briefly about some of the books you've published.
So this is a not yet. I have so many books inside of me. The books that I have actually written and helped write are ones that I've ghostwritten for clients. So I can't, unfortunately, name which those titles are because of the confidentiality around it. But it's definitely something that's been on my bucket list for a long time. I have lots of different topics outlined and ready to go. But it's a matter of, as I'm sure you both know, when you write professionally and you're helping other people with their writing, finding the time to write your own. So
yes, we totally understand that.
Yes, it is a balancing act.
Yes.
So. Well, how did you learn to write a killer bio?
Yeah. So writing, I think, one, trial and error for sure, just kind of like going and changing it up and seeing what kind of things people were reaching out to me for. That's one piece of it. Another piece is really learning the essentials of copywriting is really, really important for writing a bio because you have to keep it really short, concise and clear, but it also has to be compelling. And how do you do that in just a few words? And so when you look at things like taglines or, opt-in subject lines and things like that, those are really good sort of training grounds, I think, for understanding what makes a good bio. Because a bio is not just about telling people, hey, this is what I like, or this is who I am. It's really about telling them, this is why I'm the right person for you, right? So everything we do in business is ultimately about our customer, not about us. So,
right.
So, Erin, killer bios, I've read so many bios and some of them weren't killer. They killed me. So they were lacking some ingredients in that bio. Tell our listeners what is exactly needed in a bio.
Yeah. So a bio should tell people first and foremost, like, of course it should say what you do, but it should always be written in a way that tells the reader whether what you do is for them. So who are you speaking to, right? So whether you call that out in plain language, like, hey, I help writers who focus on business systems, or you can say that, writers who focus on business systems or whatever, right? You can say that in that way, or you can say it sort of with an undertone of that you focus on. I think in the blog post that you shared on Twitter, I mentioned like saying you help people with like their diet to help with like gestational diabetes or something. And then pregnant women know, obviously you're the coach for them, right? So there's a couple different ways to do that. But the ingredients you must have is, what do I do? And who do I do that for? Right. And then that credibility piece, like what makes me the right person or a credible person to help you with this?
Right. And I think that's the hard part for some writers, and because that's what we're teaching in our course, Write My Book Bootcamp, is knowing who that reader is. You got to know who your reader is so that you can talk to them even in your bio.
Absolutely.
And if you don't know who you're targeting, then you're going to struggle with that piece. And then that's what I've told the people in the class is it may evolve too as over time. Mine has changed over time who I'm helping with writing books, because the more I do it, the more I see who I enjoy working with and what comes more naturally to me, what's more interesting. And like with any job, not every project is going to be the most interesting, but you want as many of them as you can. And so you definitely need to know who you're talking to. I like that piece. So what should they leave out of their bio? So you've got, first review real quick, the ingredients to go in a bio.
Yeah. So what you do, who you do that for, and then what makes you, a credible service provider, or if you're not, most of my clients are service providers, but what makes you credible in what you do.
So what, who, and what you do. All right. So what are things that they need to leave out of their bio?
Yeah, anything that's really generic and trite. So for example, when you see people say, I'm a marketing maven or whatever, and hey, I've been guilty of this, like I said, trial and error. So I'm not calling anyone out, but it's things like that are not specific, right? What does that mean to be a marketing maven?
Right.
Everybody.
Sounds cool, but what does it really mean, right?
Exactly. And if you want to have something like that and you have space for it, this is why it's so important to leave those things out, is you probably don't have space for it, right? You want to catch people's attention. It has to be short. There's limited characters on a lot of platforms. If there's space for it and you love it, okay, fine. But make sure that you are being more specific as well, like marketing Maven for blah, 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 doing XYZ, right? So anything that's kind of trite or cliche like that, I tend to advise people to leave out. Hyperbole. Yes, we want to toot our own horn. Yes, we want to tell people like, we're great. And there's no shame in doing that. But definitely make sure that you're not it's going to sound like you're just one of those cheesy online marketers or, it'll kind of turn people off, I think, and then they'll actually trust you less.
Yeah.
So we should put our awards in there, shouldn't we? Like if we have writing awards or
absolutely,
but not awards that don't pertain to the job that we're doing at the moment. I mean, how far should we go with that? How far should we go with tooting our horn?
Yeah, I think as long as relevance is always key. Like, is this relevant to what I do? Is this relevant to what people need to learn from me, whether they trust me or not? Is it building trust, or is it just like, even for me, having won that award, in second grade or whatever, I wouldn't put that on there now because that's not really relevant. It can be part of my bigger story, but it's,
right.
It doesn't belong in the bio, right? So what's relevant to the here and now? Absolutely. So any of those writing awards.
Awesome.
So what I see a lot is, like, my bio says, Cherrilynn Bisbano lives in Rhode Island with her 18-year-old son and her husband of 21 years, and she fondly calls them her M&Ms. Now, is that not something you would put in a bio? I mean, how personal do you get? I know Joyce has something similar in her bio as well, but that's on our Facebook page, right,
yeah.
Joyce? I mean, on our website. So how personal do you get in a bio?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That is such a great question, because there are different kinds of bios, right? So if you're talking about, especially for your audience, maybe the jacket of a book or, your website about page, you can start to get a lot more personal and add some of those fun details that help people get to know you. I think about it as there's kind of at least two different kinds of bios, right? There's like your Twitter bio, your LinkedIn bio, like those few words, that sentence or those little blurbs that you're trying to communicate to people as soon as they land on one of your social media profiles. Now, if you want to dive in and get to know someone better, like you go read their about page or the jacket of their book, I'm a huge fan of getting personal, because then you start to build that connection with people where they start to get to know you as a person. So I do the same thing, and I tend to infuse some humor into my writing. And so people always comment on the fact that I say, this is an example, I reside in the Seattle area with my 4 dogs, 5 chickens, and 1 husband. And people are always like, oh, just the 1 husband, right? So I think, when it shows, thank you. When it shows personality, when it gives them a little insight and taste into your personal life, where you have space to do that, is great. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say I'm a lover of Jesus and chocolate on a couple of my bios.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get comments about like, that's an interesting combination.
Yeah. Instead of turning water into wine.
I have Christ, chocolate, coffee, and cats. So
there you go.
Tell us a little bit about your writing time. Do you write on a consistent basis? Do you write daily? Do you have certain times that you write?
I write all the time. Some of that time, all the time. Some of that time is for myself. Some of that time is for clients. So the first thing I do actually when I wake up, you said the magic word there, coffee. I brew my coffee. I'm a creature of habit. First of all, because I like to be, and secondly, because I think it just really helps when you run a business to have routines and habits. Mm-hmm. So I have my coffee, I have peanut butter toast, and that's like every single day. That's what I have. And I sit down with my journal and I write at least 2 pages. And that is a practice that I've been doing for the past few years, primarily as a way to, as you both know, I'm sure when you're running a business, there's so much mindset work to do. There's so many ideas in your head. You got to do brain dumps and emotional dumps and all that stuff. So I started journaling. It's something I do, like I said, every single morning. So that's one piece. I definitely am a more creative writer in the mornings, I find, and I start to get more distracted later in the day. So I try to do a lot of that heavy lifting in the morning. And then,
that one.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. And then it's like late at night, I start to get inspired again. But now that I'm getting older, I'm like, I can't really stay up and do that like I used to. That gets harder. So yeah, that's kind of like how I spend my own writing time. I also spend a day trying to work on like my blog content and articles to pitch to media and things like that. And then the rest of my time is kind of between marketing and other tasks is writing for clients. Yeah.
I like that Todd Herman's 90-day year program. And he talks about blocking and tackling, and which that is one thing. Is he said, give each day like a theme. And that really helped me manage my time better. So Mondays and Fridays are for me days, unless just something comes up like today, somebody had to reschedule their podcast too. So you're not the only one to tomorrow. And my day's relatively flexible tomorrow. So I'm like, that's fine. And it actually helped me out today. But then I have Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are days that I meet with clients. I'm editing and working on the podcast. And like today, we're doing interviews. I'm visual. If I put those blocks of time out on my calendar, it's much easier to manage my time and projects that way. So I like that idea.
Yeah. I'm the same way with the visual. I'm just like you. And it's funny because I think when you and I spoke the first time around, Joyce, I said the same thing. I don't schedule calls on Mondays and Fridays because of, and I didn't take Todd Herman's program. So I guess, hey, look, I'm a genius too, just like Todd. But I do love the having those themed days, and I'm starting to move in that direction for my podcast as well, where I just do all the recordings. Because if there's just an interruption, especially as writers, when there's interruptions, you cannot get anything done because you have to spend time getting into the writing mode, right? And getting into your content. So yeah, I love that.
Well, and that's the other thing he talks about is context switching. And if you have those dedicated days, then you know, okay, I'm not going to be interrupted. I can do this. Or if I am interrupted for not long, I can hop back to it because you're in that mindset. Okay, this is what I'm working on. And I'm one of these, and I don't know if it's part of the ADD or what, but when my husband calls me a freight train. When I get going a direction, I'm slow to get going that direction, but when I'm getting going that direction, you better hightail it out of my way because I'm going to get it done. And I hate to stop something when I'm not quite done with it yet. That drives me crazy. Where some people love to bounce around, which actually is not as effective for you. So if you are that's that context switching where you like spend 15 minutes on one thing, then you check your social media and then you go back to it or you go to something else. And by the end of the day, you may or may have not got anything done.
Right. And
I'm guilty of that because there's some times that I get sucked in to Twitter or wherever and like, oh, I got stuff to do. What in the world am I doing?
Yeah.
It's like, it's 3 hours later. How did that happen?
The time escapes you so quickly when you work in that way. Because I'm guilty of the same thing. And probably anyone who runs a business and does marketing on social media comes across this, which is you go to social media to promote something or to post something about that you're supposed to be posting for work. You end up scrolling. 20 minutes later, you go, what am I doing? So you close out of it. And then you go, wait a second, I was on there to do something for work. I got to go back in.
I've done that so many times.
Terrible.
I do that all the time. I think I even did it today. I was going to send a message. I don't know. I don't think it was to you. It may have been to Cherrilynn. I don't know, to somebody. And I got on there and I responded to a couple of things. And I got out and I went, oh, shoot, I actually got on there to do this.
Right.
So it happens.
Oh, yeah.
It's not perfect, but you just got to try. And the themes and the blocking time has really helped. So that's a good point. Yeah. Well, what words of advice and encouragement do you have for new writers or someone maybe who's struggling to write their book?
Yeah, I think, a couple of things, and I think you'll both appreciate this given the business you're in. I think first and foremost, go get outside your own head and speak with somebody else. You know, if you need a springboard, if you need feedback, whatever, you know, sometimes you just need somebody to like pour your ideas out to and say them out loud so that you can kind of work through them. Like that is so invaluable to me as a writer, you know, just getting outside my own head. So that's, you know, probably the first thing I would say. The second would be just, and this is kind of like advice I need to take myself, because I'm the kind of person who writes and kind of like edits as I go and wants it to be perfect as I'm writing it. And I always really struggled with the rough draft. I always struggled with that. And it's something that I've been working very intentionally to overcome, which is just get the ideas on paper, no matter how sloppy, how terrible, just write them out. Go back and edit later, because if you spend too much time crafting as you go and really trying to make it sound how you want, it's just not going to work. You're going to lose your train of thought. You're going to spend all of your energy just making one paragraph look beautiful instead of just getting as many words as you can and as many ideas as you can on paper. So if you struggle with that, really, really practice just free writing and being okay and leaving alone the messy stuff.
Yeah. Yes. We highly recommend that too. So we're like 100% woohoo. Yes.
Yeah. Yay.
Because, and like you said, the other thing that people got to remember too, you're slowing down your writing, you're slowing down your creativity. And if you do that too much, it also can give you, you know, make you discouraged and you stop writing because you're trying to make it perfect before it needs to be. And so we have a group of people in the Write My Book bootcamp course that we talked about. And 2 of them started doing this every morning, which I think it's great if that works for you. Before they get out of bed, they have prompts that they've given themselves. They will type up however many words for 15 minutes and email it to themselves so that they get on their phone. And so before they even get out of bed, while they're, you know, your mind is still and quiet and you're kind of waking up, they write. And it's working for them. I mean, one lady, she's at 20,000 words. And
oh my gosh,
I'm ready to, she goes, I want to go and put it in Scrivener and get it all pretty. She goes, but I'm going to wait and do a little bit more before I do that. And I said, that's great. So it's one of those things you got to figure out what works for you. You know?
Yes. Yeah. Wow, that's impressive, because my brain is not functioning before coffee, but I do the same thing often late at night. You know, I was saying my creativity kind of starts to pick back up late at night. And so I don't, and I don't want to bring my whole laptop to bed, but I'll just have like the notepad on my iPhone, and I'll start writing on there sometimes. And then you don't realize, I feel like there's something to be said for writing in that way, because you're not editing and making it perfect as you go, because you're quote unquote just taking notes. But then you realize how much amazing content, you know, if I'll copy paste it, email it to myself, and realize how many words I wrote just laying there, kind of letting the thoughts flow. Yeah, that's great. I love that she's doing that.
Yes. Well, okay. So besides free writing, do you have anything else to help them with?
I mean, I think the journaling piece, like a lot of my clients who aren't even writing clients, I mean, they do a lot of writing. Often my clients are people who, you know, are writing their own books, or they are trying to write better content for, you know, for their social media, kind of build a personal brand or whatever. I encourage them to journal, because for me, you start journaling about, I find it funny when people say, I don't know what to journal about. And I'm like, oh my God, I was called, there's a poem, a children's poem called Twaddle Talk Tuck. And my family called me Twaddle Talk Tuck because when I was growing up, because I talked so much. So I'm like, I never run out of things to say or to write about. So it boggles my mind when people say they don't know what to journal about.
It's a weird situation for me too. So.
Right?
I think journaling is so important. Journaling almost like clears your brain sometimes. Yes. And what I did was I started a journal on Blogger, and it started becoming my blog posts, which turned into a book that's getting published this October.
Oh, that's amazing.
So it's, you know, you never know. Not all of my deepest, darkest thoughts are in the book, but it's healing as well. Journaling is healing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's how I started writing, was journaling too.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Joyce. I'm sorry, but that's exactly it. It's like you start journaling, you're just pouring feelings or stresses or whatever it is that you want to just put on paper. And before you know it, and I don't know if you two can relate, but I often feel like my writing kind of writes itself, right? So like the ideas just start writing themselves. And so I think that's why journaling is so important, because you're just pouring everything out. It doesn't have to make sense. Just let yourself go. Right. And when you do that, you're going to discover so many things about yourself. You're going to discover so many ideas you didn't know were there. I'm not a psychologist or anything, but I feel like you kind of tap into the subconscious sometimes when you just let it all out.
You do. Yeah. And also, as you're talking, I just realized you're exercising your brain on that writing skill.
For sure.
And because even that free write, that gets your brain in the mode of, okay, I'm going to share my thoughts out on paper or type them on the computer, whatever. Mm-hmm. And it exercises that writing muscle. And it is a writing muscle that a lot of writers don't think about. And this is something I try to encourage people with as an athlete. They have to go and exercise to strengthen themselves to do whatever their sport is. Mm-hmm. Well, our sport is writing, and you still need to exercise that muscle. Journaling helped me in that same sense. When I stayed home with my son after he was born, I went from working full time, going 90 miles an hour. I had been working in daycares for 7 years, and then I had a receptionist job for a while. And then we moved after he was born. And so I stayed home with him. And my mind was like going crazy. Like, I got to have something to do. Mm-hmm. And so there was a lot of Oprah and self-development books. And then I started journaling because that was one of the Sarah von Brecknock, I can't even remember how to say her name. She wrote a book about journaling. And so that really inspired me to start doing that. And that's really what jump started my writing, is like journaling these thoughts out. I'm like, I really like this. Wonder if I could write a book, and I started doing some short stories with a writing group. So definitely journaling is an excellent idea. Well, I love that. So journaling and free writing, have a killer bio.
Yes.
I would also say, and I think you would agree, look at the different platforms, because as we're talking about through this whole season 9 is each platform is kind of like their own planet, and you've got to know what kind of bio to put on each one.
Yes.
To make sure it's appropriate.
Yeah. You wouldn't have the same bio for LinkedIn that you would have for Twitter.
No, that's such a good point. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Really good point, Joyce.
Yeah, you do want to make sure that you're optimizing your bio for the audience who's on each platform. And as you two know, and you're on Twitter probably mostly, I'm just going to guess, because that's where so many writers hang out. And so what you're going to say there on that bio, and to those writers who are either, fiction writers or self-publishers or whoever they may be, I see a lot of those, those type of people on there, is going to be different than how you're going to present yourself, like Cherrilynn said, on LinkedIn, where you might be speaking to a different type of author. Someone who's active on there is a little different. So super important to get to know your audience, which goes back to that. Who are you writing to?
Right.
Of course, your ideal client should be the same person on every platform, but the way you communicate on those platforms is going to depend on, who's hanging out. Yeah.
Definitely. Well,
Great information.
Yes. This has been wonderful, Erin. Thank you. And we appreciate it.
Oh, no. Thank you.
We'll stay in touch. Take care.
Yes, absolutely. You too.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Write Hour. Our goal is to help you achieve your writing dreams.
You are one step closer to write your book.
Learn how to get the book out of your head with the 4 steps we teach our clients. Sign up for the free email series at thewritecoach.biz. The link is in the show notes.
The 4 steps help you clarify your focus, create and organize your content, and complete your book. We share tips on the writing process, and you can download the writing planner to track your progress.
Don't let fear and overwhelm keep you from writing your book.
It's time to write your book.